ADKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, how do you navigate today's real estate markets? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know, I do appreciate it. Well, so are you buying or selling a house in this environment? What do you need to know? Well, today, Realtor Caralee Gurney is here to give us a few tips. Caralee, always great to see you.
Thank you. Always great to be here.
And it would be much better if I turned your mic up.
Okay.
So I just do this to Tony Joe every Friday. I always keep it down on purpose. But I wasn't doing that for you. So there we go. Got your mic up.
Great.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this market. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about all of the interviews that we've done through the years, and this is the first interview or discussion that you and I've had that things have really slowed down. I mean, it's a whole lot different environment.
It is
today. So talk a little bit about that.
Gosh, I've been doing this for nearly 13 years. And, you know, when I got started, it was, okay, get there, see the house by 9 a.m. and have your offer in by 12 because there's going to be 10 behind you or maybe 20 or more, which was crazy. And it was a great way to get started in real estate. But this year is different. And starting this summer, we started seeing quite a slowdown. I mean, an election year is always slower. So that was expected, but this was more. I mean, we have a lot of interesting things going on with the interest rate and a lot of interesting things going on around the world and in politics. And unfortunately, that all plays into real estate as well.
It does. And there's so many reasons to wait, to not pull the trigger on buying a house, to not pull the trigger on listing a house. There's just so many political, like you said, things that have kind of gotten in the way. And fortunately, we're getting some of that out of the way. But let's talk a little bit about interest rates and versus, as part of the transaction versus the house price has gone down. Which do you think is more, are you seeing as more that's holding people back? Is I'm sure, it's kind of one of those things, when I wrote this question down, I thought, well, that's an obvious answer, but it's really not an obvious answer because there's kind of a combination of things going on here. But what do you think is the biggest reason people are not taking action?
Well, I think part of the reason this year, and I know we're getting past that, but it has been, let's wait and see what happens after the election. And so we're past that now. We're not far past it, but we're past that and kind of beginning to see what's going on. But I think people first wanted to know, how's this going to affect the housing industry if I'm ready to go buy something? How's this going to affect our economy? But when I look at price, which they're still improved over last year, when I go look at numbers, they're still improved over last year. They're just not what we've been seeing in the past as far as price increases year over year. The interest rate's been interesting because people have been afraid, okay, if I wait a little longer, the feds keep talking about lowering the rate, and when the Fed lowers the rate, I should see that at the bank. You don't necessarily see that on your mortgage prices because they kind of adjust for that ahead of time. And I think really most importantly is it the time to buy the house for you? And if it is, marry the house and date the rate. You can always change the rate later.
Yeah, I think it's falling into the group think. Everybody's thinking the same way, and you end up missing out on an opportunity. You got to be able to say, well, this is what I want in a property, and this is what I'm looking for, and you find it, well, yeah, but that's different about it. But most of the things check the boxes, and if you mess around and wait too long, you may miss out on on what exactly you're looking for. So, what do you think it would take? And you said that prices today are higher than they were a year ago.
I was looking up some numbers today just on just real estate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in general, so in all of MLS. And in that, I mean, you're still seeing a 3% price increase over last year. But what you're not seeing, what we've been seeing, is the inflated price increases, like 17, 20, 30% increases from the previous year.
Right.
So things are coming down in prices when they're priced on the market. For a bit this year, it was hard to catch where the real price should be, because you're kind of caught between the inflation and should the housing prices come down, and where do you land in the middle of that? And so that's been a little bit of a puzzle piece this year. But if you still look last year at this time versus this time this year, you're still seeing maybe a 3% increase in that price.
It's almost kind of an what's the word I'm looking for?
Unprecedented.
Thank you. I couldn't get that out. What's going on right now, because you look at all the moving parts, and it's almost like, well, these should all be doing different things. You know, the Federal Reserve, they cut interest rates. Well, mortgage rates should come down. Didn't happen like that. Do you think that really kind of caught your industry off guard a bit? Because I think everybody was betting on, well, they're going to fall at least, not go up.
Yes. In fact, I went to a forecast last year, an economic forecast, and they were discussing interest rates and saying that, they should be 5% this year. Well, that's just not the case. There are opportunities to have lower interest rates. That's, if you buy the rate down, or if you happen to go with a new builder that offers that type of rate. But that's just not really what happened. And I know a lot of buyers out there were expecting, when they hear, oh, the Fed went down, that means my mortgage rate would go down if I went and got a mortgage today. And the thing about it is, mortgage lenders actually go and predict and try to set a rate that is what they are seeing predicted in the market. So when that happens, it doesn't necessarily change a whole lot at the mortgage bank level.
So what are you telling people? I mean, are we getting closer to a situation where there's a real bottom in real estate prices, or are we just kind of maybe on the beginnings of that steep curve down?
Right now, when you look at the industry, I mean, it definitely is shifting more towards a buyer's market. And, some of it heavier in the higher end, some of it, heavier in the lower end. It just kind of depends on what pocket you're in. Overall, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you're looking at, one of the things that we look at to judge a market is how much inventory is out there. And if we looked at the market today and saw, okay, there's 100 houses, there's a lot more, but let's just say there's 100 houses on the market right now. If we didn't have any more houses come on the market, what would that look like? How fast will we run out of those homes? And over the past 10 years, it's been, okay, we're going to run out of those homes in 3 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. Well, now we're looking at 6 months plus.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Things have shifted like that.
It is, and so 6 months is your equal market between buyers and sellers. So as it shifts higher, which it's done pretty quickly, I've looked at some pockets that this summer maybe were at 4 months and now they're closer to 6 months. Some are over 6 months, and I even pulled a pocket this morning and they were over 7 months on some higher end properties. So that tells us, okay, it's shifted. It's time. It's the buyer's turn now. It's a really good time to buy.
So have you, in looking at all the different price ranges of homes, have you come across a price range that acts as if they're oblivious to what's going on? I mean, like there's just something about that price range that's still hot, or are we just beyond all that?
No, we're not beyond all that, because there's certain neighborhoods that people want
certain
to
neighborhoods.
be in.
Okay,
and
right.
if they're cash buyers, that's going to be a higher end neighborhood, right? So there's some higher end neighborhoods where cash buyers can afford to be in those neighborhoods. So when a house comes up on that market, which might not be that often, it's gone. And so there are still markets like that. There are still subdivisions like that.
So do you see a higher percentage of deals falling apart in this type of a market that versus? I guess if you were going out to look for a property 4 or 5 years ago, you had to have everything in line.
True.
You couldn't kind of gamble on certain things. I mean, this market you probably can.
Maybe so.
But do you see things deals tougher to get done?
I don't know that I necessarily think of it as being tougher to get done, because, and here's the reason, is because every buyer and every seller is different. Their circumstances are different. And because of that, every transaction is different, and I still learn something new on every single one of them. So, I it just depends on the circumstances and the condition of the home, and there's just so many puzzle pieces that go into it that people don't realize.
So you grew up in a really hot market, and things have changed. And I know the quality of your work and how good you are with your clients. Has it caused you to change, do things differently?
Absolutely.
And to where you're just kind of going, wow, I just didn't see that coming. That's
Yeah, and this isn't the first time that's happened. I mean, you just think about things that happen in our world that change the way we have to do business, whether you're in real estate or anything else. I mean, COVID was one of those things, and it
Right.
just happened to go successfully for the real estate industry. So you do have to shift to whatever's going on in the market, whether it's rates or worldly things that are happening that are causing those changes. So, gosh, you wouldn't be a good real estate agent if you didn't keep up with what's going on around, read what's going on, and make sure that you are adjusting your style and the way that you're approaching people daily.
So what's the are you seeing a situation where the ranks of realtors is thinning a bit?
This is the time. This is the
So
time.
people who might have gotten in at the wrong time, or they just haven't been in long enough and they just can't survive it.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of those times. I feel very, very blessed that I had a successful year, but there were many agents who didn't, and that very well could have been me. But fortunately, I've had a good base of clients and still continue to do good business. But it definitely is a different market, and you're definitely having to approach listings, especially different than you have had to approach in the past.
And you also have to work harder.
For
A
100%.
whole lot harder.
For longer.
Yeah, and so that's I think it's kind of not that it wasn't hard when in the boom days or anything.
It was hard in a different way.
Yeah, in a different way, but I think this is just such a strange setup right that we're experiencing right now, because you would think that prices would have fallen a lot more, that there would be really great opportunities for people to get out there. It's just like a slow grind.
It's very strange like that. Very many houses are just not having showings. I mean, we're doing a lot more open houses than we had done in the past. You're trying to do creative events to get people into the homes. That part is very different. Our focus is different than it used to be.
Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by that when you say focus is different?
Well, let's just think about it. Here you're in a hot market, and your house goes
Right,
in
right,
1 or 2
okay.
days, right?
Mhm, right.
Now we're in. Okay, what are we going to do to get this house sold? It's just a way different mindset than, hey, you're going to get a lot of offers. We got to prepare for that.
Okay.
Now you're not going to have any showings. We got to prepare for that.
Okay, so what's the most? I'm gonna catch you off guard here. If you don't have an answer for me, that's okay. What's the most creative thing that you've done the past couple of years, do you think?
Well-
Or do you have anything that just stands out or maybe doesn't stand out?
Well, in the past I've done some pretty crazy things that are kind of fun. But this time, what I've done recently, just a few weeks ago, I actually had a pop-up event, and I called local vendors
Oh,
who do
that's-
different
that's
things.
really cool.
I had them come in and set up booths. The house was empty, so I'm like, just come in, set up your booths. I'll do champagne and food, and we'll have it'll be fun. But they can see how you live in the house. They can see how you can have an event in the
That
house
is
and what it
really
looks like.
good idea.
So
Look at you.
it was fun. We were able to promote it and get people into the house. So we weren't having showings, and that was a way to get people in that they enjoyed being there.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Realtor Caralee Gurney is here today to talk a little bit about what's happening in the markets. You and I were talking earlier, and you said that it's turned into a buyer's market almost just like it overnight.
Yeah.
You just woke up one day, and all of a sudden things have shifted. Describe what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, I'd say that's happened over probably the past year and a half, but it kind of slowly happened, and now it's just there.
No, I know
it's
exactly.
like-
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some of that. I mean, cut you off.
No, go
I
ahead.
think some of it is the denial phase.
I think so too.
Everybody's going through this. It'll be back. Everything will be fine. It's not that big of a deal. This isn't really. This. It's not supposed to happen this way. but it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the thing, I would think that you kind of look at this from another perspective of it's good for the markets to get to detox them.
Yes.
It will be really great for the stock market to be detoxed. No, it's not going to feel good, but
No,
that
it doesn't feel good.
that will come as well in
Mm-hmm.
due time. Just like when, if you sit back and you think about the boom that you worked through for however many years.
Almost 13.
Yeah, almost 13. Wow, that's something else. You think about some of the craziness. I remember I sent you my brother-in-law. I
Yes.
guess I can say this on air. My brother-in-law, and you had the first or second day you had like 10 bids or 10 offers on the house or something crazy like that.
It was. It might have even been more, but it was a lot.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, you're in the market. You're in the market to, let's just say, to buy a house, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to help you, but you got to be. I think you got to be very selective. What kind of qualities are you looking for in a realtor?
Well, I think when you're looking at a realtor, you need to be looking at their experience, their knowledge, their expertise in the area that you're looking. And if they don't know that and you still want to work with them, how are they going to fill in that knowledge? And it's kind of interesting in our area because it's so widespread that you can't help but be in several places. But do they have a proven record? Did a friend refer you? I think that is just like someone who's used them can recommend them, and I think that's a really good way to find out. Okay, and what did you like about them, and how did they handle themselves, in negotiations? Those are some really key questions that you can ask someone that's actually used the person that you're interested in using, rather than just going and finding a name somewhere.
But I've found, though, that people kind of short-circuit that process. They don't necessarily want to take the time to go through that. They just want to find the person and go forward instead of being very thoughtful and intentional about, okay, did I ask these questions? Am I sure? Are they thoroughly vetted out? Well, I guess one of the great things about a recommendation, if you ask for a couple of names, if somebody, you can tell if somebody's really in love with their realtor, they're going to tell you, and they're not going to say much anything if it's the opposite. But I would think that it takes a certain, or you tell me, you're the realtor, I'm not.
Well, I was just going to say along those lines. On the opposite side, some people think they don't need one, and I'd say a lot of people who have heard a lot of what's going on this year. Amazing
to me.
It is amazing, and they're like, oh, I can just go do this myself. I don't really need to do that, and that's where I think a lot of people miss out.
So let's talk a little bit about the qualities to find somebody to a buyer's representative. I guess that's kind of what you'd call it. Mm-hmm. Is there a certain skill set that you've got to have to list properties? In other words, is it a situation where you could have a person that's just great at listing, great at getting houses sold that way, but they're not really that great on the buy side? Do you see that?
It depends. Some agents only like to do one side, and they're just a buyer's agent, or they're just a seller's agent. Most can do both, and when you do it enough and you're experienced, you get good at it. And I think it's really important to look for someone who's going to market your property, who's going to be creative, who can market your property further out than just your backyard, and who's going to be, and this one's really key, who's going to just be forward with you and tell you like it is.
Right.
And that's really important, because I know when I first got started, I was a little afraid to say, well, you should do something about this. I learned over the years that you really just need to just be honest, and kind, but honest, and tell them the truth, because that's what they're looking to you for.
Well, so let's talk about that conversation of setting expectations. We've talked about that many times through the years, how important that is to, when things come up in the process. Well, what we talked about. You put it all on the table and said, this is the deal. How is that conversation so much different but important?
I'm going to give you an example, because I can think of two clients that this has happened to. We bought the house, right? They buy the house, they close on it. And as we're buying the house, one of my things I don't hold back on is, hey, just so you know, for resale value, these are going to be things. Are you sure you want to do this? These are going to be things that are going to cause you grief when you're ready to sell the house. Maybe it's that it's backing up to a busy street. Maybe that it's got power lines behind it or a cemetery nearby. Maybe it's one of those. I'm going to point it out and let you know. And when I come back to list it and we're ready to sit back down and set expectations, we're going to have that same conversation. I'm going to go back to that and say, hey, remember, I told you this when you bought the house. You're gonna deal with these. And sure enough, the feedback is always on those items. So it's important to look at those things, and it's important to have a knowledgeable person with expertise to tell you those things so you know whether or not you're buying that house fully knowing whether or not it's going to be a good resale value.
Okay, this is a very important question to ask, and this is going to grade you as your ability to be a realtor.
Okay, I'm scared.
Okay, do you watch reality realtor shows?
I really
reality
don't.
TV?
You know, I've tried, and I'm like, ugh, because it's just not
What I always
my
love,
world.
Yeah, what I love about them is when they get down and they negotiate, which brings me to the question.
Okay.
You know, in a situation where, and it happens, of course, in every transaction, obviously, how do you know that's the price that you know, it looks like you can get the price down a little bit more, that you feel like they'll agree with it? How do you know what that price is?
I mean, that's a good question, and I bet everybody would love to know the exact answer to that. But what I can tell you is you have to look at the numbers. You have to look at what similar properties are going for, and you know if it's the right price. If your realtor is looking, and this is what I do, I'm going to pull all the comps, and I'm going to say, if I were listing this house, this is what I'd list it at. And that's what's important. The market tells the price. The market determines the value.
So talk a little bit about in the situation where some of these comps are still maybe really overvalued. Mm-hmm. That puts a challenge in there, right?
It's interesting because, you know, I talked about in different scenarios, you have to do things differently. You do your business differently. So when I'm doing comps now for a listing, I'm not looking at the sold so much because they were 3 months ago, right? Or maybe 6 months ago, which the market's different. So what I'm looking at now is what are things priced at that are listed.
Right. That makes
and then how,
sense.
You know, of any of those that have sold recently, you know, what percentage of list price are they selling for? So that's more, I've shifted my thought to that, which it's always been in the past. It's like, we've got to look at solds, got to look at the solds to catch up with the sales prices. Now we're trying to back into the sales prices. So it's a little different.
So I guess it goes without saying that, and of course it's with anything, but it's experience is key.
It is. It's important. But, you know, some agents have to get started somewhere. I know I did. But the longer you're in it, the more you know.
So, and this may be an obvious question, would you rather start out in this environment, maybe down the road a bit, when things have really bottomed out, or in the real boom environment?
You know?
Or is it one of those things where there's pros and cons to both?
There's pros and cons to both. I mean, if you're good at foreclosures, you know, foreclosure market might be your thing. If you're good at the fast pace beat every day, then fast market. Your
website is
www.themariposagroup.dfw.com, and that's TheMariposiGroup DFW.com.
See, you do that much better than I do. This is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.